Hey y'all, it's your girl Jada Rayne, and welcome back to another episode of No Brew Sh. Today we're talking about a very personal topic for me, which is mental health, and some of the ladies at the table today. It's an important topic to have because it's something that impacts so many different people, especially people within the age group of 18 to 25. AMI is like the most prevalent thing, which is any mental illness. Like I said, I'm not an expert, so I would definitely go do your own research. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, there's been like an increase between, when you look at how many people have mental health, it's 46.6 million people, which obviously is a crazy amount. But then also, if you go to the APA website, you can see that there's been an increase from 2007 to 2017, and that increase has been 47% in how many people suffer from a mental health issue. So we're going to talk about that today, and yeah. So before we go into this episode, now that we got all the crazy information out the way, I'm going to introduce two new guests that we have today, and then you already know Jessica, so
Hi.
No introduction necessary, and I will have my two lovely guests introduce themselves.
Okay, I guess I'll start. My name is Sandria. I'm Jada's roommate. I'm majoring in sociology with a double minor in international studies and world political systems, so basically politics. And I'm in the Army as well, and that's all that's interesting about me.
So my name is Laysha Hawkins. I am a junior here at Indiana University. My major is African American and African Diaspora Studies, which is like the long form way of saying that I studied Black people all around the world who were at Africa at one point and are now kind of scattered. I also am studying and doing a certificate in social research in health and medicine, which again is a long way of saying I like sociology, I like research, I like health and medicine. I'm from Fort Wayne, Indiana. The 260. Oh! Shout out to 260. If you're from 260, you know.
Right. Oh no. They're just some haters. Everybody want to hate on Fort Wayne. I hate on Fort Wayne too, but
Period.
we're from there, so.
So it's okay.
Better, but let's not even go there.
What number?
But it's fine.
I'm from the 317.
Don't front on Louisville, Kentucky.
We are late as fuck on everything, but I still love that place.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
She's like, okay, think what you want. But to get
on that
into the
note.
conversation, the first question I wanted to ask, so I threw out all them statistics about getting a heart attack and it's too much. Why do you guys think there is this growing trend? Like, what do you think is contributing to that?
Ooh, okay. That's
Loaded question.
definitely
Yeah.
a good question. I think it's a lot. I think a lot of it has to do with our generation becoming a little bit more acceptable of mental health and mental illness. So more people are being able to step up and say that this is happening with me and this is what's going on with me. And they're noticing more people do that. So people are getting more comfortable to do that, which also comes along with a lot of people self-diagnosing themselves, which I know that's a whole different topic that we can get into.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like I would definitely want to hone in on the fact that people self-diagnose.
Yes.
Because there is a mental illness, depression. There is a chronic depression, but I think that because some people want to be, or they consider themselves to be more open-minded in understanding their mental well-being, their mental wellness and mental well-being, they kind of automatically gravitate to that, even though there are many branches of mental illnesses.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's something that our generation needs to work on, as well as congrats to the fact that we're able to have that conversation.
Right.
I don't ever want to demean that. So.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's great that we're finally having the conversation. But I think that another thing that's different about our generation that is not similar to previous generations is the kinds of stressors that we face. For example, just growing up, just going through the school system, there's a whole different set of pressures than there was put on our parents. There's these standardized tests that you have to take all the time. They want you to get an associate degree while you're a high school student. And then on top of that, you have these pressures socially that grow, that are magnified by things like social media and the internet, and there's all of these people for you to compare yourself to that wasn't necessarily a factor that previous generations had to deal with.
And as far as like that comparison thing that you brought up, you think comparison more so in like a physical sense, or more so comparison in just a social sense?
in a social sense, and then also in a physical sense, because we have different strategies of coping with mental illness that our previous generations did not have. So for previous generations, a lot of times it was looking at drugs, looking at alcohol, abusing certain things that this generation does do, but we also have, because we're starting to have this conversation about mental health, bigger sources of support and resources and people who can help us with mental health that isn't the bottle like it was in previous generations.
A lot more people are going to therapy now and being more open and talking about it and accepting of it. So I do think we have different avenues than a lot of previous generations had, but the drug thing is still definitely an issue.
Still very prevalent. Yeah.
I think it's important to, although we do have all these coping methods, and I think that's great, I also feel like kind of going back to that self-diagnosis thing, I think you're only really going to know what works for you if you are diagnosed, because there's so many, unique factors to different disorders and different illnesses and different things that people can struggle with, and not all are alike, Like even when you think of social anxiety, that can be different from a different form of anxiety. And so I do feel like to a degree it's important to be diagnosed, just because, like I said, I mean, you might find a better way to tackle that.
Yeah.
So I do feel like that's part of the problem sometimes.
I definitely agree.
So this year was kind of my first year becoming diagnosed with these mental health problems that I'm having. So like there was a whole period of time that I was self-diagnosed. Knew that I had these things, could identify the symptoms, this, that, and the other. I could even point at some of the causes, but it wasn't like, there was the label that I was giving myself and not the label that the doctor gave me. So once this year I was finally able to get that diagnosis from a doctor and just have more conversations and more support with licensed professionals. I've been working with them since September, and I'm still not even at the point where I know how to deal with my mental illness. So it's just kind of like, you think that the hardest part about having these mental illnesses is reaching out. And then you think that once you reach out, everything's gonna be solved, every problem in the world is gonna go away. But there was 3-4 months that I was sitting here literally going through all of these changes and transitions just to get right, and I'm still not there. So it's just kind of like, the diagnosis is super duper important, but it's so important that you're diagnosed by someone you're super comfortable with. You need to be with someone who you're open to be honest with. Like, you need to be with someone who you feel you can talk to about everything, whether that be drug use, whether that be problems at home, whether that be financial issues, because the people who are trying to help you can only help you if you let them.
Right.
So that, I think, is like the hardest part, is the reaching out, getting the diagnosis, and in that diagnosis, there's a whole, like you said, there's a whole different set of problems and processes for you to go through based on your illness and how that's affecting you. That could be extremely different from the next person with the exact same diagnosis.
Right. I do kind of want to ask you, because for me, in a personal sense, like you said, I knew that I was struggling with these things that would be considered depression and anxiety. Not sure what kind or how severe it is, so that was something that I had to look into with my therapist and possibly being diagnosed. I know for me, I'm afraid. I'm still kind of afraid to be diagnosed, because then it makes it much more real. It's real for me, but it makes it much more real. So I kind of wanted to ask you, I don't know, were you afraid to get diagnosed?
Terrified. Even just to call it that in a conversation, like I would call my grandmother and just like say, like, I'm feeling some feelings of depression, and she essentially, and this is another conversation we can have, she essentially was like, well, you're not praying enough. I'm feeling some level of anxiety, and her response to that was, well, you're not praying enough. What are you worried about? God is providing for you. You don't have faith if you're worried. So it was just like, even to like call it depression and say that was what it was faced with all of this stigma and all of this judgment, even from people who like I care so much about, like my family. So like it was so hard for me to even accept that label as mine. And then in addition, it was kind of humiliating. It was kind of debilitating just to like accept these things to be my own, because I did not ever think that was the kind of person that I was. I thought that I was so much stronger than this. I thought that these were the product of my own actions, and like just accepting that alone came with its own sort of like set of like internal struggles and internal battles, because I didn't even want to be called depressive. Like I didn't want to be called someone with anxiety.
I definitely feel where you're coming from with that, because like growing up, like I've always been like, and I know a lot of people say this, so whatever, but like being the strong person, the strong friend, like in my family, I'm the youngest child, but I've always been the one that did this and did that and made sure this happened and made sure that happened. And so I've definitely struggled with like basically saying that there was, I don't want to say something wrong with me, but that I had things that I needed to deal with more so. So I definitely struggle with that. And I've been saying for a while now that I was going to go to therapy, but I've kind of just been pushing it off and putting it on the back burner just because I don't want to have to say that I do have anxiety or I do have depression. I'm self-diagnosed as well. But it's just hard to go from being someone who everybody expects to be this person, and then now I need someone else to be that person for me.
Yeah.
And a lot of people around me, especially family, they don't understand and they don't even know how to be that person. So when I say things to them like, I'm depressed or I'm going through this, I'm going through that, or today's just not a good day for me, they're like, well, what's wrong? And I don't know what to say to them. I don't know how to tell you what's wrong. It's just not a good day. And that just makes things difficult.
Yeah, I agree. I think, especially in the social media age, like we talked about, you have a lot of people who show fake support online.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of people who will say, you know, if I have a depressed friend or a sad friend, I do X, Y, and Z. Or even, family, if somebody's sad, come to me, those type of things. But when they're actually dealing with somebody who deals with this kind of stuff on the daily, I don't think people really know how to handle it and be there for somebody.
Yeah.
I think people, that's another part of the stigma part of it, is people find it very burdensome. Like, people don't want to take that extra mile to understand. And I guess I kind of want to open this question up for you guys. How do people around you, how do you feel like people around you are impacted by your own mental health issues? I'll answer after y'all, but I want to hear what y'all got to say.
One way that people are impacted, there's days I don't even get out of the bed. So all of my responsibilities for that day, everybody who I was supposed to see, everything that I was supposed to do, every meeting that I had, every appointment that I held, done. It didn't happen. So those people all made time for me and I didn't make time for them. So that's difficult. In just my household, my roommate relationship, like it'll be like one small thing that someone will do that will just affect my whole entire like functioning process. And like, it's difficult to communicate that with people because they're like, well, that's not that big of a deal, or like, I don't understand what the problem is. Like, okay, I apologize, so why are we still talking about it? And it's just like, thank you for acknowledging that there is a problem here. The problem that I'm acknowledging is that you did this and it caused me to feel a certain way. And I can't just go on with my day about like the way that you're going on with your day because I have X, Y, and Z wrong with me. And my brain is playing this situation over and over and over in my head. And I cannot let go that you did this. I can't even remember the good things that you do for me.
Right. Yeah. Did you have something you want to contribute?
I think that sometimes it's difficult for some people to even allow you to give that explanation. Yeah. They might just say, well, I don't know what's going on with them. I'm just gonna distance myself or cut myself off from them. And I'm not one that suffers from a mental illness that I know of right now, but I have many of friends that possibly do. But I see that in some friendships, when it comes to friendships, I would say, not just not just random people, but in certain friendships, it becomes like a tug and pull. If someone is going through something, then either I might not know exactly how to help them in that situation, but at least I know personally, like I can figure out like how to open up that conversation to allow that person to finally give their explanation of why they might not be able to open up or they might not want to talk about something right now. And I know that becomes difficult sometimes for some people.
I kind of want to ask you, as somebody, like you said, who doesn't suffer from mental illness, but has a lot of friends that do, so how do you balance your own emotions with the emotions of others? Do you ever find that to be a difficult task?
Sometimes, but the only reason why it becomes a difficult struggle is because I don't know exactly how to help that person or help the many people. I mean, during my junior year, the first semester, literally everyone in my life has something going on, and I would be that person, I'd be that outlet to allow people to come and talk to me. The only thing that was really bothersome about it, or bothering me, is the fact that I couldn't help them. And I had to realize, like, it's not my job to help them. It's not my job to find the solution, but the way that I can help them cope with whatever they're going through is to listen. If you listen, that can be a whole new outlet for someone. I might not have the resolution or the solution, but I can at least listen to somebody and allow them to get that out.
I think that's very important. I feel like a lot of people in friendships and things, like when someone's going through something, they feel like that they have to fix it. Like, I don't need you to fix me. And that's not what I need you here for. You, my friend. I just need you to listen to me and be there when I need you.
I know you can't fix it.
Yes, I know you can't fix it. I can't fix it.
Yeah.
It's just something that I have to work through. And I think it's very important being friends with people who deal with mental illnesses that you have to pay attention to triggers. Triggers are definitely very important. Like, I know for me, I withdraw a lot. So like you talk about the missed appointments, things like that. It's definitely something that I've dealt with. Like I put myself in a little cocoon. I don't talk to anybody. I just kind of withdraw. And Jada, she always pays attention. She's a very different guy. So let me not blow her head up.
Right.
But and I sometimes feel like me and her just had this discussion like the other day. I sometimes kind of feel like I'm being annoying. Like, I don't want to always come to her with my problems or talk to her about like what's going on, and then when I do withdraw, I'm like, okay, I've been gone for too long, so maybe she's upset with me, so I don't want to say anything to her, or I don't know how to reapproach the situation without causing conflict, and then we end up talking and it's completely fine. She's just like, I knew you were going through something. I wanted to give you your space and allow you to feel how you felt, and I'm here. So that's very important.
I was going to say the triggers thing too, and part of the triggers thing that I think is important to understand as a friend that's trying to help somebody that has mental illness, not minimizing their triggers. I think too often people will be like, well, you're too sensitive, or they'll say, well, why would something that small just, it's a chain reaction. That's what it is. It's that one small thing that's kind of like the cherry on top of everything else that's just been horrible at that point. And I think people don't realize, again, if you could choose not to be that way, you would choose that.
Everybody would choose that.
Yeah, that's not really a choice to be that way, or how your brain thinks. At least I don't feel that way. I ain't no doctor. I ain't no expert. I'm just going off of how I feel.
Chemical imbalance.
But
my personal imbalance.
And I feel like if you're given those emotions, then why should you have to regulate when you're able to use those? It's just like if someone is happy. Nobody ever says, why are you overly happy? Like,
but everybody always expects you to be.
Yeah, but then when it comes to anger, sadness, or even a feeling of regret, someone's like, well, you shouldn't regret. Like, you shouldn't be angry. Like, it's not that deep. But like, it might not be deep to you, but you don't understand what that root might have to do with me.
Right. And it gets hard to get better when you feel that way, because then you're beating yourself up because you feel like everything you're doing is wrong. And it also becomes difficult because you feel alone. I've had many a times where I felt like now I can't turn to somebody, now I can't talk to somebody, and I feel even worse because I feel like I'm the one perpetuating that because I'm doing this or I'm doing that and not really cutting myself enough slack for I'm just going through the motions. I'm just trying to figure it out the best way that I can. Right. So I feel like sometimes it gets really difficult because you don't want to be that burdensome friend, but at the same time, you don't want to put your own feelings on the back burner.
I think that that's what a lot of people with mental illnesses try to do sometimes, is think about everyone else instead of thinking for themselves at times, just because they know that this mental illness might affect other people. But other people need to take into account that you might suffer from a mental illness.
Yeah.
Like, the people don't take that into account. So when you don't take that into account, it becomes difficult to realize that sometimes. Right. People are just like, oh well, we're just having a good time. Like, why are you sad? Why? What's going on? And it's like, you got to realize I'm going through something.
Yeah.
Continuously.
Honestly, it's not even always sadness. For me, anyways, for me personally, it's not even always sadness. Like, sometimes I just kind of feel like, I'm not sad, I'm not happy, I'm just kind of here, and it's not the best feeling either. So it's kind of,
yeah.
I think like one of the hardest things that I've had to do in my closest friendships, like with two people, honestly, that I really, really trust and really, really love, was have conversations about how they can support me. And like that, I feel like is so crucial in situations where you're in a friendship with someone who has mental health issues, because even when they have these like little episodes of, okay, they're completely withdrawal, or okay, they seem like they're kind of snapping off today. Like, I wonder if they're okay. Just like having that conversation about how to approach someone when they are being that way, and like have that conversation is so important, because like one of my problems is not that like I feel burdensome when I reach out to someone. I feel like nobody ever reaches out to me. I feel like I'm always like, how are you? Like, how are you doing? Do you need anything? Like anything? But then like as soon as I'm going through something, it's like, oh, see y'all.
Watch out.
Like,
Right.
sticking out. Like, okay. So it's just like, I literally just had a conversation with my friend because I had a really difficult period as I'm going through transition with these mental illnesses and medications that I'm now on. And we just had to talk about like, dude, this whole 2 weeks, we both thought about each other during that 2 weeks and did not even ask each other how we were doing. So just having that conversation and setting up spaces where you can have that conversation, setting up spaces where someone knows how to comfort you if you're crying, because everybody wants to be comforted differently. And to be the best friend that you can be, you just need to know how to interact with that person no matter what state they're in.
Yeah. I agree.
I think that's important, because I do think that sometimes, maybe even without intentions, that friends of people with mental illnesses kind of take their mental illness personally. Like, they'll think that you're doing this because of something that they did, so then they get in there and they get upset about you, but you're just going through something, and instead of them trying to figure that out or help you with that, instead of them trying to figure that out or whatever, they take it personally. So then they're upset at you, and then you're upset at them for being upset at you about something that you can't control, and then it's like a whole cycle of something that communication could have just solved.
But I think people don't think you can control it. I think people genuinely believe or think that it is something that is within your control.
Yeah.
But you can't control the way that you feel. But I think people genuinely believe that. And I think that's why they react in those type of ways towards somebody who may struggle with mental illness.
They see the action on the receiving end. So they see, oh, they just skipped class, or they chose not to go to class today, but they don't see what's going on the inside, where you're like, I got completely dressed and then ripped my pantyhose, and now this is the most stressful thing I've ever gone through in my entire life. I'm shaking on the bathroom floor. I can't go to class.
Definitely been there. I cried over losing my favorite pen one time.
Girl, I almost cried today because I couldn't find my pantyhose.
That's how it be. It'd be like the tipping point. It'd be something
it's
so small.
And then on top of that, you be in the bathroom like shaking, like, am I really crying over pantyhose? Like,
and then you be
more, and then you get angry.
About that. It makes it worse.
So you be mad, like it's not even that serious.
It makes everything worse. And they're like, what happened today? Don't talk to me today. Like, y'all.
Don't want to talk
about it.
about
I gotta go to CVS right now.
No, it is hard, and I feel like, I don't know, I think there's another part of that conversation that has to be had too, because for me, sometimes I also have to look at personal accountability as well. And it's not saying taking the blame for the way that I feel and the fact that I do struggle with depression and things of that nature, but also being I can't always use that as a crutch. I can't always use that as an excuse either. And sometimes it does become easy to use it as an excuse. And I'm being honest, and I feel like a lot of times if you're somebody who struggles with that, you don't really want to be honest and forthcoming in saying that. I think just being kind of mindful of, that's where, like you said, communication comes in. Even if it's tough, even if it's hard, I at least have to say something to that person to let them know. Now, whether they choose to believe that or not is on them. But at least I did my part of letting them know it don't have nothing to do with you. But I do think personal accountability has to be factored in on the individual who is struggling as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely.
I think that is on both ends. Yeah.
But for me, I feel like, so my problem is I don't ever cut myself enough slack. Like, I will cut this person X, Y, and Z. Like, I will give them, all right, it's okay. They're having a bad day, or they just didn't get to it. It's no big deal. But like, once it comes to myself, I'm like, this is the worst thing you've ever done because you missed a deadline, or like, why are you turning that in late? Like, you had all week, and like, I just like put all of that pressure on myself. But like, as far as personal accountability goes, I can't separate myself from my mental illness. So as much as I don't want to use it as a crutch, as much as I don't want to use it as an excuse, it is a really big part of me and a part of the way that I function. And in some situations, it is important for me to express that this is really what's going on, and that's why I'm not being the way that I normally am. So like, for me, it's hard for me to even say, this is something going on with my mental health. It'll be like, oh, something happened, or I just wasn't feeling it that day. Like I would tell a teacher anything but this is something going on in my mental health.
Which
so, like,
is okay, because I feel like, not to interrupt you,
No,
but
please
to kind of add a little pushback, which I definitely agree with, because it is hard to separate yourself. And I don't want to give the impression that I'm saying that.
Yeah.
What I'm more so saying is, in the realistic world, if I'm going through something, I don't say, you know what, this is my mental health acting up. This is why I'm doing X, Y, and Z. I just say something as simple as, I'm not feeling it, or I'm going through something. I think sometimes even a phrase like that, I don't think you always have to give the entire spiel, because some people are not going to understand.
Right.
So I kind of just be like, you know what? And you can kind of get a sense of who you can be that transparent with.
And who you
and
can.
who you can't.
Definitely.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Most definitely.
But I definitely see what you're saying. It is hard to separate yourself, and that's why I find myself getting more frustrated and hurting more, because I'm trying to explain it to people who do not get it.
And don't want to get it. That's
Yeah.
another thing. They don't want to try to understand.
And that's a hard part too, and even like seeking out therapists to talk to. Like, am I really going to tell you all these things going on with me? Can you really understand me? So it's just like, I agree, and don't. I'm for the cameras. I am not at all saying that that's what she was saying, but in case it was interpreted that way, we're all on the same page. But like, yeah, it's just like, you can't separate it from yourself, and like, especially trying to explain it, it's difficult to explain. It's difficult on the receiving end to understand a lot of times, especially if you're just one professor out of my whole list of professors and all the people who I interact with in one day. So like, yeah, you kind of have to feel it out, and that's even more difficult when you have mental health issues, is feeling out, because sometimes your brain convolutes things.
Yeah. I think kind of going back to the thing you were talking about therapy, I agree with you when a lot of people feel like, I think I definitely went into it when I first went. At first, I was not trying to go. I feel like that's every person, specifically Black people too. We just don't be wanting to go to therapy
At all.
It's a lot behind why though.
And it took me a while to actually go on the regular, because I feel like at first I won't see you for like 3-4 months, then maybe I'll pop back up. And now I go consistently, and at first I kind of felt like, well, what is this going to do for me? Like, I'm telling you what I'm going through, okay, whatever, what are you going to tell me that's going to make me feel any better? I wouldn't say that you get to be in a space where, everybody says this, but you get to be in a space with somebody who's out of your situation that you can talk to. But I think like, what I appreciate about what I found in therapy is they're not solutions, but they're ways for me. I'm trying to think how I want to explain it. It's ways for me to work with how I am, if that makes sense. How to work with my thought process instead of trying to fight against it constantly. Find ways to like maneuver through life with it. That makes sense. Like, I feel like that's a better way of coping than thinking you're just gonna get rid of it. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people think that, like, they think that it can just go away. Like, oh, you had a good day today, and then the next day you're not having a good day. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Well, depression is very
constant.
Yes, and it stays. And just because I look like I'm having a good day, my makeup's done, my hair's done, I got on a nice outfit, I'm smiling today, that doesn't mean I'm any less depressed than I was when I was laying in the bed and couldn't get up and go to class. That just means that today I felt like looking nice. And then the therapy thing, especially how you mentioned the Black families, that's a whole different thing, because like you mentioned earlier, God plays a big part of that. When you younger and you try to go to therapy, they're like, why don't you talk to God? Why you want to go talk and tell somebody all your problems? Why you want to go tell them what's going on in my house? I know my mom has said that before. Why you want to talk to them, or why you want to do this, or why you want to do that? Because you're not helping me. Sorry, Mom, if you watch this, but you're not helping me get through what I need to get through, so I want to talk to somebody that can. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you feel the need to go to therapy, go. I'm going to go. I called the Center for Human Growth, and they told me wait till January 17th, because they all booked up. So if y'all need to go, call them on January 17th.
That is a whole another thing. All booked up. We are like seeking services. Like, holiday time is the worst time for mental health. And we can't see you until January 17th.
No, she told me just call back January 17th. They would try to get me scheduled in. So
schedule me until January 17th.
Yeah.
If you are a student who is really in crisis, you don't have that long.
Nope.
And like, in addition, calling. Do you know how many people get stressed out about having to make a phone call?
Yeah.
Same thing for CAPS. You know how many people get stressed out about, okay, I have to call this number and then tell these people what's going on with me, and then try to look at my schedule and my calendar while they're telling me these random dates that are 3 weeks in advance and 4 weeks in advance. And I don't even, and then on top of that, you're scheduling your 5-minute intake appointment.
Yeah.
Right.
And don't mention the money because CAPS cost, I mean, the
you get the
Center
two
for
free
Human Growth is not, I mean, it's free for certain instances, but CAPS cost. So
Yeah.
that's the whole, and then think about it, when you're not in college and you're paying for it on your own,
Yeah.
it's less of an incentive to want to go.
It definitely
100%.
is. It definitely is.
And that's not even including barriers of healthcare.
Right.
Yeah.
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 And then healthcare, there's still, even with a lot of healthcare companies, some mental illness is not something that's heavily covered. They think more about the physical side of injury.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you go to healthcare and then they prescribe you medication, but we don't cover that type of medication because we don't really see it as a necessity. So you're on your own there, and this medication is freaking thousands of dollars every month. So then what do you do?
Yeah.
You're just shit out of luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
S-O fucking M.
Do you guys feel like, so kind of off topic to what we've been talking about, but I mean on topic, do you guys feel like, I think because we talk about it more in media and stuff like that, and we're having more conversations about mental health, people think the stigmas don't exist. Do you guys feel like there's still stigmas present despite all of that?
Yeah. There's
And
definitely
like, are we really that forward thinking
no,
as
not.
much as we think we are? Are we really that
Absolutely not.
progressive?
Not at all.
No.
In that sense. And especially I feel like I think we're getting more like socially acceptable with somewhat with anxiety and depression, but I would say there are certain mental illnesses like bipolar, like schizophrenia that are not socially accepted.
People laugh at people who are bipolar
Yeah.
and schizophrenic, and they
All
think
the
it's
time.
a joke. Oh, crazy. They're crazy. That's all you hear about them. It's like, but since I may have depression or I may think I'm depressed, then that's okay for you to be that.
Yeah.
But even
Yeah.
with that, but some walker, they came for her like, she has anxiety, but she used to be a stripper.
Which
What
does
does that
that
mean?
mean?
Right. What does that
What
have
does
to do
that
with
mean?
anything?
Lots of performers have anxiety.
Yeah.
Lots of
Yeah.
performers have
Exactly,
anxiety.
but schizophrenia and bipolar disorder and other mental illnesses are not widely accepted, so there's still so many stigmas behind them. And for one, it's because people are uneducated, but being uneducated is okay, being ignorant is okay, but you have to have the will to learn. You have to want to learn about it and want to know about the things that are affecting other people. But a lot of people are selfish and they don't care if it has nothing to do with them. If it's not something that can benefit them, then they don't care about it. So it's okay to just dismiss these people as crazy because I don't understand. So
Right.
since I don't understand, it doesn't matter, or I don't have to deal with it. And that's
Right.
not how things should be.
Right. You know what else
Sad
contributes
truth.
to that though? Hollywood. When you look at these movies
Yeah.
and you have this, this murderous guy, this scary guy, and not
It just
even
happens to be.
even when you look at documentaries of like serial killers, they always seem to frame it to where they highlight the fact that they may have had some type of mental illness, whether that be schizophrenia or bipolar, and they kind of push that narrative of that's why they're doing. So I feel like crime shows, Hollywood, that type of thing has pushed that narrative as well.
Yeah.
And then all of the stigma that creates also impacts funding for research about serious mental illness.
Yeah.
Like funding just to help people with serious mental illness. Like, we don't want to deal with this person. Do you know where these people are? They are in prisons.
Yes.
Prisons are becoming asylums in 2019. Like, literally, like, we talk about depression, we talk about anxiety, great, amazing. These things are things that are more prevalent now, and that's important, that's amazing, but like, these other mental illnesses that people need the most help for are the least looked at and the most looked down at.
Yeah, but how about how bipolarness is very, what's the word I'm looking for, by a lot of females and a lot of males too, because I like a crazy female, I like a bipolar female, a lot of females like I'm bipolar. It's very, I can't think of a word, fantasize.
Yeah, they found a way to fetishize it.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's very fetishized, and they're like, I'm bipolar, but when you meet someone who is really bipolar, how do you treat them or how do you deal with them? Just because you wake up and you mad at your boyfriend one minute and then the next minute he kissed you so you happy, that does not make you fucking bipolar.
No.
That's where the line becomes blurry with self-diagnosis. Coming from somebody, like we said, we're self-diagnosed. That's where the line becomes blurry because people then just kind of throw shit around.
Yeah.
And just say, I have this and I have that, and do you really? Do you know that for sure? Or are you just saying that? Sometimes it's just a word people assign to things like, I'm sad today, so then people would just say, man, I'm really depressed.
Right.
Instead of like, you're actually someone who struggles with this on a daily basis, it just becomes an adjective for things.
Right.
And that's when it comes to like social media and it becoming a trend. And that bothers me because why can't you just say that you're sad? Why does it have to be such a huge extent? I understand like people exaggerating things for social media, but like when you have such a crucial topic in somebody's life and you just automatically connect that to yourself just due to the fact that you're trying to push and express how sad you are about something, like I don't think that that's fair to the person that actually does have that mental illness.
Because it takes away from people who actually suffer from these disorders and suffer from these mental illnesses, because they're like, well, everybody says they're depressed now, everybody says they're like everybody says they're bipolar, so it really doesn't matter that you're saying that to me. Get to work, come to class, do what you got to do. Is laziness, it's chalked up as laziness, or you just not want to do whatever it is that you're supposed to do. And it's way more than that.
The issue runs deep. Even just looking at your childhood, like that was one thing that was, I mean, it seems like why would that be a big discovery, but just making the connections between things that I went through as a child and how they're manifesting today and affecting my mental health. It's not just something that just popped up. It's something that's gone on throughout my entire life, things that I've been struggling with, and then I see, like I said, some of the impacts of my childhood on myself as an adult now.
And then there's a lot of places, since you mentioned childhood, I want to say this. When I was about 10 or 11, my mom put me in this place called Wellstone. It's like a crazy home, that's what a lot of people call it. And they really didn't care to see like what was going on with me, whatever. When I was about 11, they tried to say that I was bipolar, but I was only there for about 2 days, so I never really took the diagnosis seriously. I was 11, they tried to give me, I can't remember what the medicine's called, but it was a medicine that's typically taken by adults that have bipolar disorder, and then my mom pulled me out because she said I didn't need that or whatever. And so it's a lot of places are out to just get money from people, or just, I don't even know how to put it in words, but they weren't really trying to help me figure out what was going on with me or what I was suffering from. They just wanted to do what they could
push your product.
Yes, to push your product and get me out of there. So,
and that happened while you were so young, and it's still affecting you even today.
And I want to say, like, sometimes it feels like the solution would be that parents have to be more attentive to their child's mental health, but I feel like I look at like stuff with my own parents and I look at things with their own mental health, and I feel like it becomes hard to say that, because it's like, how can you help me if you need help?
You haven't even dealt with things that happened in your childhood or been happening thus far, so how do you help your child get through what they need to get through, and you haven't even worked through what you need to work through?
Because even my mom told me, like, she had said sometimes she feels guilty or she feels bad because she feels like the things that she struggled with definitely just she feels like I kind of just transferred it on to you.
And then another problem with that is, for my personal situation, is my parents' coping mechanisms that have a hard effect on me. And then, like, I see the way that you are with this, I don't want to claim that as mine. I don't want to claim that as mine at all. And then seeing some of the behaviors that I'm repeating that they did.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
The things you said you would never do.
Never. And then you find yourself doing them, and then you're like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I saw my mom or whoever suffer through the same thing and do the same thing, and it didn't work for them. So why am I allowing myself to do this?
And the most important thing that I did once I noticed that I was following these patterns was go directly to my parents and say, this is the behaviors that I'm doing now as a product of this. I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be like this.
That can be very difficult.
Now it's extremely difficult, but it's like we finally at a level where we can be open about these things, and like that's the most important thing in all relationships, I think, across the board in mental health, is just openness. It's just feeling that you can just communicate openly without stepping on nobody's toes, hurting nobody's feelings. Like, I was able to go to my mom and say, I'm doing this that you did when you were like this. I don't want to do this anymore. Can you help me get out of this? And she responded to that well. That's a whole nother story, but she responded to that well, and because she noticed that I really was resistant to being that way, and she's even resistant to being that way, she's been supportive of me.
That's awesome.
Good. That's really great. It's great y'all had that conversation, because I'm sure it's like a burden that's lifted off of you.
We had to.
I think for me, I don't know if we've been able to have that conversation in that way. I don't think we've ever been able to have a conversation that way, but it has taught me one thing. Like, I think I put, we talk about like friends and just letting that be, but I think sometimes we put our parents on somewhat of a pedestal, despite what kind of relationship you may have with them. I think with my mom, I used to be upset about certain things that transpired in my childhood, and I'm not saying that they were right or wrong, or that's a whole nother thing, But I feel like for me, I had to learn to love her where she was at and kind of understand that there were things going on up here and things that were going on with her that I just didn't understand. The older that I get and start to understand my own mental process, then I'm like, I look at it different. I look at it a lot different than I think I did when I didn't have that understanding, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's definitely hard to have those conversations with my mom still. We've slowly gotten better over time, but she still struggles about talking about the things that she goes through mentally and the things that have affected her in her childhood and growing up and the decisions that she's made in life. So it's kind of hard to talk to her about it when she's not open about it herself. But it's getting better. I would say that it's definitely got a lot better.
Yeah, it's just all of it is really just a process.
It's
all of it is.
It's all a process. And like for me, I think the point that I was able to come to my mom with that was when my mom actually just was open and just admitted, like, there's parts of myself right now that I'm not happy with, and there's parts of myself that I'm working on, there's parts of myself that I want to be better about, there's parts of myself that are broken, that are damaged, that are affecting you. First off, it was so important to me for her to acknowledge that stuff that's going on with her affects me.
Yes.
But she was just open, and like her being open about not being all the way right or not being all the way where she wants to be was enough for me to be like, okay, Mom, I'm also not where I want to be. Like I have this image when I'm home. I present this face. Like I'm a Kim
do the
K.
same thing.
The Kim K.
Kim K. Period. Yeah. Period. But like, yeah, I'm the Kim K of the family. It is what it is. But like, Kim K going through some stuff. So it's just like, it was so helpful to me for my mom to acknowledge that there's faults within herself, and it just made everything else, like all the conversations that flowed after that were a lot more natural.
Yeah. I think kind of just to wrap it up, I know we keep talking about the process and things of that, but allowing people that are in that space of mental health, allowing them to be a work in progress, allowing all people to be a work in progress, because I think although we all say this nobody's perfect mantra, I think we expect perfection out of people way too much. So I think that's just something important to note, with situations like these. And I think pretty much we covered a lot of things. I'm actually surprised that nobody cried, because I felt my little eyes getting a little watery, but I said...
I did too, at different point, but I'm glad I didn't cry. My makeup looked too good.
I said, whoop.
I don't know if you guys have anything else to add, any last minute things you guys want to say.
I just wanted to say the importance of, especially being a first generation college student, that's even more pressure, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, that's just even more pressure. So regardless of whether you're a first generation college student, whoever you are, whatever you're going through, don't be afraid to reach out to someone. Just at least if you only have one person in your corner to talk to, just make sure you have at least that one person. That's very important. That's very important.
I want to say one last thing about that too. Everybody is not going to be able to have that conversation with you.
Everybody is not.
Only rely on the people that you know can actually be there, have those conversations, and be there in the way that you need them to be. Don't expect everybody to be that person for you.
Because everybody can't.
Because that's a way of protecting your mental health too, is not allowing everybody in that vulnerable space.
Yeah. And I would say, as someone that is a friend of individuals who do have these different mental I can't talk today. mental illnesses. Be genuine in the way that you are concerned about someone's mental illness. Don't be surface, because it is easy to see that. Be genuine. If you can't be genuine, then don't put yourself in that situation. And make sure that you tell those people that are in your lives that you can't handle, you don't have the capacity to be able to help them, to be that person. But if you are that person, then be genuine and make sure that you keep an open mind and understand where they're coming from. I would say that.
The last thing that I wanted to say is that, like, Jessica's position as a friend and just as a support system is so important.
Yes,
like, the most important factor in getting over mental illness, or just getting back to a state where you can call yourself normal with a mental illness, support is the most important factor. Like, just having a support system is one of the biggest determiners of whether or not you will be able to get over that mental illness or not. So just whatever position you're in, like whether you yourself have a mental illness, whether you know somebody or think you know somebody, like just be as supportive as you can be for them. Be open, be willing to listen. Like, allow them to communicate with you in the way that they know how, and try to interact with them and help them navigate the mental illness that they have.
Well, I want to thank you ladies for coming. What?
I have one more thing.
You slide it in there.
As we talked about earlier, we have a plethora of resources. So if you're that person that is someone's support system, be that person to encourage. Don't just slide it in there and say something every once in a while, but encourage them to take that first step, because they can't do it alone. Some people can't do it alone. So be that person to encourage them to take that first step and talk to someone.
Yes. I will have a list of resources also at the end of this video, especially if you're in the Bloomington area, just so you have that. And I want to thank these ladies for coming and be very transparent, because it's a hard conversation to have. And I will see y'all next week. We're going to talk about hip-hop feminism, female respectability politics, and I'm really excited. It's going to be a whole different type of episode. But thank you guys for joining us.